Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Finley. I'm the Executive Director of MASB, the Marketing Accountability Standards Board, and we'd like to welcome you to our latest episode in the Making Marketing Accountable webinar series. Today, we have a really special presentation by Peter Young, partner of Brand Valuation Europe at Presciant, and he's going to be talking about Beyond the Black Hole, quantifying and leveraging brand value in financial reporting. I'd like to introduce Peter Young. Again, Peter is a partner at Prescient with an emphasis on brand valuation in Europe. Peter has a bachelor's from Oxford and a master's from Ruskin College, and he has a remarkable career spanning probably every type of brand in our discussion when we were talking about it, from the smallest, new brands starting out to global established brands. So he's worked with all of them. In addition to his work in his practical and consultative work with these companies themselves, he also has published academically and has been called upon to teach. Most recently, he has been describing his work as simple and sustainable framework of brand management within which to manage ever-growing marketing complexity and deliver value to shareholders. So with that, welcome, Peter.
Um, Hello from the village of Duxford, close to Cambridge, England. And thank you, Frank, for your introduction. And thank you to Masby for the invitation to catch my first ever webinar. I will please beg your indulgence for my using a script. I have something of an obsession with verbal precision, and I never feel entirely comfortable with improvisation. I will try not to make it too obvious, I promise. Okay, to business. In very 2020s manner, I used artificial intelligence to come up with this title, and Gemini did a pretty fair job. It's expressed well what I wanted to talk about. Well done, Gemini. There is a black hole on the accounts of every business, brand financial value, and like every powerful energy source, it can be enormously destructive. Once quantified, however, the energy of brands once released can have consequences best described as cosmic. Brand energy can power business growth, it can generate wealth for entire economies, it can create jobs, drive careers, and carry marketing into the boardroom. Quantifying brand value is what MASB now is all about, but no source of energy is of any value unless it's put to work. It has to be, in the words of the title, leveraged. So the next step is leveraging, and it is on leveraging I will focus later in this webinar. But before addressing that issue, I hope you will bear with me as I address a serious threat, a threat to the marketing community to which we practitioners and educators all belong. As Oliver Cromwell wrote in his famous letter to the General Assembly of the Kirk of Scotland, I beseech you, in the bowels of Christ, think that you may be mistaken. And a lot of mistakes are being made in the marketing community. Marketing is in deep trouble. It is universally undervalued, particularly by the all-powerful financial community. Chief marketing officers are shut out of the boardroom, where the big decisions are made, and now AI is threatening the careers and livelihood of every marketing practitioner and every marketing educator everywhere. To coin a word much bandied around these days in the 21st century, the threat to the marketing community, indeed marketing itself, is existential. We have work to do, but there is one way in which marketing educators could help and give a kickstart. Marketing courses are seldom focused on solving the major problems of practitioners. We still live in a relentless and desperately competitive capitalist world, and here money remains the final arbiter and asset growth is the holy grail. Education often skirts round this uncomfortable reality. Oh yes, marketing education does generate certification, and that may well get graduates into jobs. A marketing degree looks very good on a CV. But our courses offer little support for graduates in doing the job, the marketing job, effectively, doing it where it matters in the eyes of employers and in the eyes of their paymasters, the investors, the shareholders, and the analysts. And education gives even less support in promoting a career which takes marketers into the boardroom. The proof is in the pudding. We marketers are not in the boardroom, and we are not getting there. In education and training, curriculum design is partially at fault. Pretty much every marketing and training course we run understates the importance of brand management. Developing skills as a builder of value is key to any career culminating in access to the boardroom. For a marketing manager, developing skills as a builder of brand financial asset value is key to their access to the boardroom. But over there where marketing education and training is done, brand management often lurks in a corner of the curriculum, relegated to a module or two out of many. The key to our craft is being taken seriously, from boardroom to Wall Street, is parked in a corner of the marketing syllabus. In effect, the marketing tail is wagging the brand management dog, and that is a huge distortion. In practice, marketing is a toolkit. We practitioners use it to build valuable brands for shareholders and other brand owners. While we continue to teach that marketing is the end and brand building the means, we mislead students, and we debase the work of every marketing practitioner and every marketing educator. To all of those who have influence over curriculum design, on behalf of every marketer, please take heed. Brand building is the end and marketing is the means. A cornucopia of sophisticated tools for building value, but still tools. And anyway, rehabilitation of marketing needs more than a refocusing of education. We all need to revisit what we are doing. We members of the marketing community need a reset in our thinking and our actions, all of us. Brand management must take center stage. In our own vernacular, brand marketing is sorely in need of a relaunch. So this webinar will be an exhortation to all of us to grasp the opportunity presented by MASB's work, to leverage its work, and interrogate marketing best practice as to how we may best do that. Well, I know what many of you must be thinking. Who is this self-appointed arbiter of what is right and wrong with marketing, this elderly marketing evangelist? You're entitled to ask, who is he to stand in the company of marketing scholars and teachers like David Acker and Kevin Lane Keller? Okay, I do have an MA from an ancient university, and it's not in marketing, it's in law. I've done some late life university study, research and lecturing on marketing, and I have even, as Frank mentioned, managed to publish one journal article in the Marketing Review. My article, A Practice-Based Marketing Model of Effective Marketing Based on an Autoethnographical Observation of Brand Management Training at Procter & Gamble, P&G, of whom more later. All my personal stuff has a worthy aim to carry marketers' best practice into classrooms, encourage research into centuries of marketing practice, foment careers in marketing, and promote a paradigm shift in marketing scholarship to one of absolute and total brand centricity, which also fits very comfortably with the brand valuation work I do with Presciant. So I do bring a different and relevant perspective to the task in hand, but of extreme relevance to our brand building project. I have managed a very large number of brands, over 50 brands in 50 years, several companies in several countries. Every brand was managed as a discrete standalone business. Every brand was a profit center, and every brand was managed to benefit the shareholder, the brand owner. I haven't kept a record of the numbers, but sales of my brands, startups and mature brands, certainly exceeded $500 million in today's currency, and the ROI was always good, or I would not have lasted the course. I have made a lot of money for a lot of brand owners. I have also sat in the boardrooms from which almost every marketer is excluded. So to further the MASB mission to bring about a brand-centric business world and get CMOs into the boardroom, I think I do have a contribution to make. And if that is an ad for Brand Me, I would like to follow it now with an ad for Brand MASB. I'm not alone in owing MASB a debt of gratitude. We all do. MASB is making a major contribution to global economic growth, wealth creation, job creation, and management career development. There are many hard-working people with MASB who should take a bow. Let me interrogate that pronouncement about global economic growth and wealth creation for a moment. I've found 3 interesting statements of MASB mission drawn from the web, and this one was offered to me by Google Artificial Intelligence. It's my old friend Gemini again. The Marketing Accountability Standards Board has a mission to establish marketing measurement and accountability standards across industries and domains for continuous improvement in financial performance and for the guidance and education of business decision makers, etc. This is not to improve just one company's financial performance, but financial performance globally, all industries and domains, and I interpret that as all. And it's not just for a while, it's continuously. And finally, many people will benefit, not just marketers. Business decision makers and users of performance and financial information will be better informed and make better decisions. That is a lot of managers. And marketing practitioners in particular will benefit from MASB's work. MASB seeks to elevate the CMO to their rightful place in the boardroom by making marketing accountable. Though that's no easy task. We all know that marketing should sit at the center of decision making. After all, marketing is the generator of long-term income. But in the real world, marketers and marketing are still light years away from the main board. Marketing and marketers are not going to get an invitation. They are going to have to fight our way in. MASB is forging the weapon essential to getting in. The financial value of brands is the key. Their mission is to create a framework where marketing investments can be linked to tangible financial returns, demonstrating the value of brands. This involves developing methods for measuring and analyzing the financial value of brands, what I call BCV or brand cash value, but that's the same as what MASB is working on. In a nutshell, shareholders own the business, shareholders own its brands, the board must grow the shareholders' assets, brand financial value is a sleeping asset of enormous potential, brand financial value is seldom measured. Only marketers can build brand value, but only with measured brand value can marketers go to work, build financially valuable brands, make shareholders smile, and enter boardrooms. Brand financial value is the black hole of this webinar. Until we can measure it, marketing stays outside the boardroom. Until brand financial value can be measured, value cannot be purposely built. Until marketers can purposely build it, there is no passkey to the door. With the key in hand, marketing can take its seat at the top table. MASB is cutting the key to the door. MASB should take a bow. But MASB's work alone is not enough. The whole marketing community has to get together to relaunch brand marketing. Practitioners and educators together have to become advocates of the value of marketing to business. And we all have to embrace the reality of commercial life, because we all still live by the Darwinian code of capitalism. Competition is fierce, only the fit survive. Like it or not, the gods of Wall Street are our gods. There's an old English saw, he who pays the piper calls the tune. The investor pays the piper. The investor calls the tune. The board pipes the tune demanded by the shareholder, the business owner, the owner of all of the assets of the company, the brand owner. And the marketer, every member of the marketing community must play the tune called by the board and the shareholders. And the tune is asset value building. Brands are valuable assets. No one plays the brand building tune better than marketers. In fact, marketers are the only players who can play the financial brand value tune. But right now, marketing does not deserve its place in the boardroom. We marketers at the moment are by far our own worst enemies. We cannot agree on what marketing is for and what constitutes effective marketing. And the absence of universal agreement on the nature and purpose of marketing is an elephant in the room of marketing, scandalously ignored by practitioners, scholars, and professional bodies such as the AMA and the Chartered Institute of Marketing in the UK. Practitioners pay little heed to academics. Academics do not talk to practitioners. As managers of brand marketing, we are at best mediocre. We have to stand tall and we have to boast. I would like to revisit David Acker's story of Sir Christopher Wren because it frames the problem and it hints at the solution. A great architect of St. Paul's Cathedral observed stonemasons chipping away at stones in the streets of a Restoration London gutted by the Great Fire of 1666. "What are you dudes up to?" asked Sir Chris. "Carving stones," says a stonemason number one. "Making bricks," says stonemason number two. "Sure," says stonemason number three. "Sure, I'm carving stones. I too am making bricks. But I am building a cathedral." Like two stonemasons, we see ourselves as chipping away at stones, and that is our horizon. Asked, "What are you doing, marketing practitioner?" we answer, "We're doing marketing plans, we're data mining, we're looking after customers, we're boosting clicks, we're crafting a website, exploiting the social media, maybe goosing sales." Are you educator, scholar, researcher, lecturer, writer, curriculum designer, professor? What are you doing? Lecturing on marketing, tutoring marketing students, doing research, supervising, consulting, providing a useful education in marketing, guiding the crafting of brand equity. Does any one of us answer, "I'm creating wealth, creating jobs, crafting careers, I'm contributing to a better world, I'm also making shareholders very happy"? Or does any one of us marketing educators answer, "I'm helping to teach aspiring marketers to craft something of lasting value, great brands. I'm inspiring future marketers to build for shareholders, for brand owners"? Marketers have to stand tall. But brands and cathedrals are built to last, and they can do so for hundreds of years. Brands and cathedrals are built brick by brick, stone by stone, impact by impact, click by click. And brands and cathedrals are of immense value to their myriad stakeholders. Well, value for customers, consumers, users, voters, patients, donors, of course, but one category of stakeholder is all too often overlooked, and that omission is above all what is keeping marketers outside the boardroom door. We overlook the investor who funds the project, the all-powerful medieval church, its popes, bishops, cardinals, and lesser prelates, its townspeople and their modern equivalent, the brand owner, the shareholders. Few of us think much about the brand owner, and we should, we must. We are building cathedrals. We are building valuable brands for consumers, for customers, and above all for brand owners, for shareholders. If we are to open the door to the boardroom, we must stand tall, we must be proud, and we must think of brand owners. But we must act, and we must act to leverage MASB's findings. And here we switch directly to the theme of this discussion, leveraging. Left as it is, that unquantified black hole is currently cloaking the efforts of everyone actively engaged with marketing, leaving ambitions unfulfilled, careers stunted, and recognition withheld from hundreds of thousands of marketing practitioners, students, and scholars across the globe. That black hole is sucking the life out of marketing itself. The billions of dollars of cash flow, of cash value, already accumulated globally in brands is a reality. The potential to grow this gold under the floorboards with better, more effective marketing is also a reality. Marketing scholars know it, marketing practitioners know it, investors know it, even accountants know it. And the sums of money are vast, and so is the potential for putting that money to work. The first steps are clear. The brand value must be measured, marketers must stand tall and value what they are doing. But the potential can only be realized when we get to work, when we leverage Masby's work on measuring brand financial value. And how do we do that? How do we leverage Masby's extraordinary work on the black hole? How do we put its energy to work and build brands of value to consumers, customers, and other stakeholders, but always shareholders? How do we teach others to build brands of financial value? That comes in two steps. First, we've got to agree what we're trying to achieve. And secondly, we're going to have to help. We're going to have to help all we can every marketer in doing it well. In fact, we need help with both steps. The first challenge is to agree on what we're trying to achieve. Securing that agreement should be easy, but it isn't, because marketers are not good at agreeing anything. Maybe too many creative and too many free spirits. We don't even have an agreed definition of marketing itself, what it is and what is it for, and therefore what constitutes effective marketing. Until that widespread agreement, we are nowhere in doing the business. We need help already with fixing this one. Well, fortunately, help is always at hand. Let's start with Bernard of Chartres and Sir Isaac Newton. Bernard the monk gave us encouragement which works as well today as when he beaved away in his monastic cell about 1150 AD. We are like dwarfs, said Bernard, standing on the shoulders of giants, and we can see more and farther than they, not because of the sharpness of our sight or the height of our stature, but because we are carried aloft and elevated by the giant's might. And the great Isaac Newton, he too, said, I have seen further than others. If I have seen others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. And even marketers have giants to guide us. Kotler, Keller, Acker, for sure, whose books most of us will have read and which sit on my bookshelf over there. Everyone has their giants, and I have a few of my own to add. Michael Baker, Peter Doyle, Malcolm MacDonald, and above all, I stand on the shoulders of the marketing giants at P&G, all teachers with whom I interacted during 16 years from 1966 to 1982, and all continue to follow since. Norman Levy, Gibby Carey, John Pepper, Trevor Clark, Richardson McKinney, Alan Lafley, twice chief executive of P&G, and the man described as the most powerful marketer in the world today, Mark Pritchard, CMO of P&G. It is standing on these shoulders that has given me the confidence, or old-fashioned cheek, to sit here across the pond and pontificate to an audience of giants, and in your own field, giants you undoubtedly are. Why the experience and know-how of just one firm? Why P&G? Well, a few facts about Procter, which you may or may not know. P&G is justly credited with inventing modern marketing in the late 1800s. Not alone, but very much the preeminent force in doing so. P&G introduced brand management as a named discipline in 1931, with the appointment of Neil McElroy as the world's first brand manager, a gentleman who subsequently went on to be chief executive of P&G and Eisenhower's Secretary of Defense. The company was voted in 1999 Marketer of the 20th Century, unanimously voted for by the editorial board of Advertising Age. Every P&G brand is still managed as a discrete business and a profit center. For brand building, P&G is the first stop to go for brand building expertise. To quote Mark Pritchard, P&G is a company of brands. We build consumer-preferred brands and products that create value for consumers, for customers, and shareholders. So we have giants on whose shoulders we can stand. To build brands over 50 years, I have stood on the shoulders of P&G giants, and I invite every marketer to join me there to do marketing well. Together, let's find a path to marketing excellence. Dr. Johnson famously said to Boswell of the lady preacher who had failed to convince him from the pulpit, "Like a dog is walking on its hind legs, it is not done well, but you are surprised to find it done at all." Dr. Johnson would not survive long in the 21st century. But his point is valid. Doing marketing is not enough. Our marketing must be done well. Brands must be well managed. Brands must drive income and profits. Brand financial value must be created for brand owners. A real-life scenario. Let us consider ourselves for a moment suddenly appointed brand manager of brand X. We know little of building brand financial value, but brand managers have to hit the ground running. We cannot wait. In essence, we must understand what we are trying to achieve, why and how. Our prime objective is to build brand financial value because that is what the shareholder wants. So we need a framework for action. We must set objectives and we must prioritize. What follows are a couple of aids of universal application. A graphic model of marketing effectiveness to put everything in perspective, and a framework or a checklist for action. Any brand manager can consider using them to hit the ground running, set broad objectives and priorities. First, the model of effective marketing describes the process in which brand value is built. And every brand manager should be familiar with this universally valid model. The model begins with a brand, since our entire proposition is that to be effective, marketing must build value, and the value resides in a brand. It must all begin with a brand. Every brand has an owner. It is the owner's investment. An owner will seek to grow the value of investments. To grow the value of this investment, the owner of the asset will employ a manager. To grow an intangible asset, such as a brand, the owner will employ a marketer. We might choose to call this figure a brand manager. The marketer selects tools from the comprehensive range of the marketing toolkit and deploys them to build, influence, mold the perception of the brand, the value it is perceived to have for its customers, consumers, voters, donors, patients, etc., all the stakeholders in the brand. The task of the marketer is to ensure that the brand is perceived by its target audience as solving their daily problems, answering their needs, supplying their wants, better than any competing brand. If the brand is perceived as doing precisely that, then and only then will the brand be rewarded with the loyalty of the consumer, etc. The goal of the marketer is to secure loyalty to the brand, which in turn bestows value on the brand, and that value returns to the account of the owner. The owner of a brand with value has an asset which may be further built or turned to advantage in cash, votes, further donations, and other manifestations of the goodwill created by the marketer. The whole process is one continuum of marketing effectiveness, building brand value to the account of its owner. Just note one thing in that model, that the key tools are product design and promotion, better thought of as communication, but they are essentially the two P's that matter of the four famous P's of marketing: what the brand is as a product and how it is perceived in the way it is advertised or communicated through message content. The other model or graphic to which I suggest marketers would find useful in being brand managers is what I call the SWOT framework. The SWOT framework or a checklist, is designed to focus the brand manager on essential objectives and a pathway to achieving them. Before you move on to action, every brand manager has some prequel to conduct. They need to identify the owner of the brand itself, of course, the owner, the targets, the competition, and the points of difference against the competition. In the full version, S is for set objectives, always financial, always loyalty, because loyalty is the prerequisite for long-term asset value. W for weaponize your brand with a strategy of differentiation. David Acker touched on this issue of differentiation in his webinar. And Michael Porter said there are only two viable strategies for a business: to be low cost or different. The brand manager knows that the first of those won't last. The brand must be different and must be seen to be different. A is for advertise deliberately in lowercase. No, not going and buying TV spots or billboards, but communication of the differentiation is essential. And A for act, to be different. Be different in the way you say you are. Be true, deliver on your promises, always. Progress against objectives. Okay. T is for track progress against objectives, financial, of course, and loyalty. I have devices for setting loyalty objectives and measuring them against progress, measuring progress on a ladder from ignorance to loyalty. Shown here, this is based on something that some academics will be familiar with called Dagmar, and there is also a version which will work for non-profit and non-commercial brand building, politics, health, and other types of business. Okay, finally, if I were to choose one takeaway from this session, it would be that, like the Roman god Janus, the god of doors, a brand faces in two directions. Towards its users, consumers, employees, donors, voters, etc., of course, but the brand faces in another direction, towards its owner, its shareholder. And it's only if this latter stakeholder smiles that the brand's value and that of the marketer will be recognized. Masby is working to measure the financial value of a brand, and Masby is not alone. The weapon is also being developed by other suppliers. So all we have to do is reach for the weapon, identify the value, build the financial value of a brand, make the shareholder smile, and the boardroom beckons. And finally, just one last word, if I may. As we build our cathedrals, we should do so with hope. Marketers need hope, but marketers have a great future. Artificial intelligence cannot do what a brand manager can do. Many services and many specialist people go into building a brand. They're shown here. And we are the ringmasters. We have to interact in the interests of brand building with a lot of other human beings. And above all, we are creative as well as methodical. Shakespeare said of the poet in his great speech, The Lunatic, the Lover, and the Poet, and as imagination forges forth the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. It will be a long time, if ever, before AI can turn the fruit of human imagination to shapes and give a local habitation and a name to a brand, especially to a brand, and especially one which makes shareholders smile. Human marketers may stand tall. This building is only for you. You are needed. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, Peter. We do have some questions. As you've been speaking, they have been rolling in. The first one is from Jonathan Knowles. He asks, other than fast-moving consumer goods, which are the other industries with the greatest potential from adopting a brand-centric approach? And do you consider that there are any industries in which you believe that a brand-centric model does not apply?
I do not believe that there is any industry which cannot benefit from brand building. Every human endeavor has to have a label, and therefore every endeavor of every company has a label. It is that label which enables users, any observer, to identify the project of that business. And therefore, there is the opportunity to build that label into a value of the financial asset. I cannot cite case histories. There are millions of case histories, and maybe there are some which prove that you can do it. By definition, almost, you have to accept that there cannot be a case history which shows you cannot. to demonstrate a negative is hard work. My personal belief, and it's more an issue of faith than it is of logic. But I think the faith can be well backed up with the kind of logic I describe. And that is my point of view. I have heard a lot in academia of what is suitable and what is not for this, that, and the other. But then again, if you don't try something, you will never find out.
Okay, excellent. Uh, we have another question here from Joanna Seddon. She asked, do you recommend using brand valuation not just to measure and show that brand creates value, but to identify the right brand actions to choose?
Um, well, yes, the brand value must involve some fairly um, segmenting work. You must have to look at the skeleton of the brand value rather than the absolute nature of it. And that should, I would have thought, expose opportunities for different approaches to the building of the brand. Does that answer the sort of question Joanna's asking?
Yes, I think she's getting to the point of, incorporating the brand valuation into the planning cycle to some extent. If I read between the lines, for example, MASB has long been recommending an annual brand valuation to go along with the brand evaluation, so you'd have both sets of data. So it makes me think of, we've not seen a lot of brand valuation incorporated into those planning cycles. And it seems a real shame because of it brings up the whole aspect of the brand, and relative to the competition and if we have the right differentiating strategy and so on. So I don't know if you have a further perspective on that, but you started off talking about putting marketing in the context that the boardroom understands, which is financials. And can brand valuations be used to do that, to kind of bridge that gap between marketing speak and financial speak?
As soon as you do an evaluation and a valuation of a brand, you are starting down the road of treating the brand as P&G does, as a discrete business, a profit center, and a place to create asset value. So I think, in a sense, the decision to go that route is absolutely the right one. It's going to involve you in a lot of rethinking and a lot of work, but it could be immensely rewarding. I remember I had many, many years of learning how to run brands and running them for P&G. And the center of every brand is what they call its annual budget presentation, in which the brand manager presents the spending, profit, the whole business plan for the next year in the context of an already agreed 3-year plan. And so that is, if we can get that even beginning down the road in other companies, we're making a giant step forward.
Fantastic. Jim asks a related question here with another of the stakeholders. He asks, it seems that public market equity analysts have little interest in the financial value of brands. Do you agree? If so, why are they so indifferent?
I think that this is purely speculative, but I think what they are doing is they're doing their own work in that and they're not talking about it. When you look at if you do a crude calculation of what might be brand financial value, and you take the market capitalization, the market cap of a company, and then deduct all of its tangible assets on the balance sheet, you get you do get an expectation of future cash flows and profits. And if you look at, for example, something like Google, you will find that its market cap is like something like 2 or 3 times the value of its assets. These guys are either consciously and carefully, or at least with a finger in the air, they're taking a look at that. Um, and I think that the work of MASB is not just going to be of help to brand builders in corporations, but in analysts and investors in the market. You
And
notice I cannot overstate the importance and the value of what MASB is trying to do, in my opinion. It is cosmic.
yeah, and Nick actually has a question that goes directly to this as well. He asks, how should a marketer balance their time between doing the day-to-day activities of marketing, which can consume all their time, and explaining the value of brand to the board?
Well, you're tough. I mean, I've always had the good luck to be in a place where either the management of brands as discrete business was the accepted norm, or be in a place where the board was so gobsmacked, as we say in England, by what I was doing that it took them 2 or 3 years to try and stop it, by which time it was too late. If you're talking of starting from a standing start, it's going to be work. It really is going to ultimately depend on the ambition of the individual. It's putting a great demand on people to go that way, but the reward can only be assessed by the individual marketer, I think.
Great. Joanna actually gave us a follow-up to her question with a little more detail. She said, yes, but not just that. Brand valuation can identify the levers to pull to invest in the right things and choose the brand strategy, which will do the most to grow the value of the brand as to the business.
Yeah, I mean, I would, if I was in that situation doing an evaluation of a brand, I would be going across a whole range of the concepts, the assignments, as P&G would have called it, which go to make up the totality of the brand and its image. I would come out undoubtedly saying, I need to take a long, hard look at the product itself or the service, depending on which we're talking about, and the communication of its benefits and its advantages and differences. Because if those are wrong, there is no point in looking at anything else. You have to get those right in order for the thing. There was I do recall a maxim also way back in my P&G days. We would say, if your brand has a long-term decline in sales and profits, then almost certainly your brand has a product problem, not one of image, because you will almost certainly have tried tricks to deal with your product effects. In that case, they will say, your remedy is you've got to look at the product. Is it delivering what it promises to its customers? If it's a short-term loss, then you can look at the product and say, yeah, we seem to be doing that right. Then turn to the communication because it is the image which is the problem, not the product itself. Is that of any help to the thinking?
Yes, I think so. We'll see if she responds with any other comments. While that's going forward, Peter, if I may ask a personal question I had, I've been spending some time like you, entering into the classroom and working towards inspiring the next generation, if you will, of brand managers and market researchers and so on. What have you found to be successful and inspiring? What type of techniques do you use when you would
Well,
suggest?
when I was being allowed to do this, and I was not dealing with school kids, but I was dealing with first year marketing students. Um, what I concentrated on was saying to them, you may think that you're coming into a totally unproven, a world where you are totally at sea. And I would say that that really is not the case. And that was where I used the idea, which is my own particular invention, of the marketing of brand me. I essentially said to these kids, you can do this because you've already been doing it for 18, 19, 20 years. When you were born, your parents gave you a name. And from that moment, you became a brand. And you've done a pretty good job of marketing that brand because otherwise you'd have no friends, you'd probably have no entry to college, you would have basically nothing because we live in a world of exchange. Human beings are social animals and we lived in a constant process of exchange. And in that process, you've been doing an incredible job of getting here in good shape with brand me. All you have to do now is learn how to do that for brand X, and that's technique. And I found that with some of the kids I spoke to, that was that kind of made them blink.
Yeah, understood. Great. Um, we have a question here from John Gasky at the University of Notre Dame. John leads is one of the co-leads of our marketing dictionary. So he's very concerned about, terms and definitions and how they are used. And that team does fantastic work. Both, it's used within academia. The dictionary is used within academia, and it's also used in, by professionals. So he asked, and I think this goes to what your previous comment just was. You were on the stretching of this term brand. He asks, what definition of brand are you using? What exactly do you mean when you use the term? Maybe using it in different ways, and then I'll add also with different audiences. How do you explain the term brand?
Um, I essentially use the word a label, um, the label by which you identify an object or a phenomenon, like your detergent, I mean, I simply use examples of brands in the classroom. Um, and I've found a difficulty in defining what is marketing, but not much difficulty in defining a brand because they live in a world of brands and people use the word in almost every situation. Um, that one doesn't seem to me too difficult. I did struggle a great deal with the definition of marketing. Um, there's a true story that in the 1990s, a bunch of quite distinguished academics called a conference at the Henley Business School, to spend 3 days examining different definitions of marketing and agreeing what would be the defining definition. And after 3 days of discussion, in which they examined apparently 100 separate definitions of marketing, all they agreed was that greater clarity and definition in the future will be needed. And this was in 1990. Um, and it doesn't seem that anybody's progressed much further in getting an agreed definition of marketing, which is why I've kind of put forward my own. But brands, I haven't seen too much difficulty in that. What they signify and how to build them, I mean, that's a whole different thing. But what they are, I think most people get it.
Got you. So the whole idea of the branded product is the term by which your products are marketed under and are viewed under by the customers.
It's what the customer perceives because they don't perceive. There's another story I remember with somebody told me, which says that we go out with a shopping list of products, but we come home with a basket full of brands. And in that process, in your mind,
Mhm.
you go off to buy a shampoo, then you come home with Head and Shoulders or Herbal Essence or whatever it is. Um, you go out for a hamburger and you munch a McDonald's, etc.
All
Um,
right. Well, thank you. I'm sure John and the team is going to reach out with you because, interesting enough, they are in the process right now of re-examining the definition for marketing. So
Brilliant.
so they will
Oh,
so I'm sure they already have that note to reach out to you. Well, all right. Well, thank you, Peter. That was a wonderful presentation, and thank you so much for taking the time and participating in our webinar series.
thank you, Frank. And any time you're passing through Duxford near Cambridge, feel free to look me up.